black girl tells judge she's homeless. What he did next left everyone in awe. The courtroom felt like an arena of judgment, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Every sound echoed, a rustle of paper, a cough, the distant shuffle of feet, as if the very walls were holding their breath. The polished wooden benches glimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights, reflecting a pristine facade that belied the raw, unyielding reality within. Dust motes floated lazily in the bright beams, remnants of countless stories whispered and cried within these walls. At the helm sat Judge Marcus Thompson, an imposing figure who commanded respect without demanding it. He was a tall man, his dark skin contrasting sharply against the white of his shirt, which peeked out from under his robe. His wire-rimmed glasses set firmly on his nose, and his thoughtful, piercing gaze swept over the courtroom like a lighthouse beam searching for lost ships. He had seen too many lives disrupted by indifference and neglect, and today he prepared to face another. Before him stood Aaliyah Williams, a 12-year-old girl who looked smaller than her years in the oversized suit jacket draped over her thin shoulders. The fabric, frayed and mismatched, belonged to her older brother, making her appear even more vulnerable. Aaliyah's large, expressive eyes darted around the room, taking in the rows of unfamiliar faces. Each one seemed a judgmental silhouette, casting a long shadow over her small frame. As the judge called the court to order, Aaliyah swallowed hard, the lump in her throat threatening to choke her words. Her hands, fidgeting with the frayed cuffs of her jacket, trembled slightly, betraying the storm of emotions roiling beneath her calm facade. "Ms. Williams, can you please explain to the court why you are here today?" Judge Thompson's voice resonated, deep yet comforting, like a steady hand on her shoulder. Taking a deep breath, Aaliyah mustered the courage to meet his gaze, feeling the weight of his scrutiny. "Your Honor," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, trembling with the weight of her truth. I'm homeless." The word hung in the air, heavy and foreboding, drawing gasps from the spectators. Aaliyah's gaze fell to the floor, her shoulders slumping as if the word itself had physically burdened her. She felt exposed, laid bare before the courtroom. The judge's eyes softened, and he leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on the bench, fingers steepled in a gesture of genuine concern. "I see," he replied, his voice steady, urging her to continue. "Can you tell us more about your situation?" With every word, Aaliyah painted a vivid picture of her life. She spoke of the nights spent in shelters, the musty air that clung to her skin, the whispers of other children echoing her fears. She recounted the kindness of strangers, a warm meal here, a friendly smile there, contrasted sharply against the cruelty of her circumstances. Her voice cracked occasionally, but she pressed on, fueled by a desperate need to be heard. Each confession became a brushstroke in a portrait of resilience and vulnerability. As she spoke, Judge Thompson observed her closely. He noticed the way her small hands clenched into fists, the slight tremor in her lip, and the flicker of defiance in her eyes when she mentioned her dream of becoming a veterinarian. He admired her courage, the way she fought to reclaim her narrative amidst the chaos. "Didn't anyone help you?" asked a voice from the back, a woman whose face bore the weight of concern. The room turned to listen, tension thickening. Aaliyah glanced at the woman, confusion knitting her brow. "Sometimes people don't see us," she said softly, the tremor in her voice betraying her sadness. "They just look away, like we're invisible." Judge Thompson's brow furrowed at her words. Anger simmered within him, fueled by a sense of injustice. He understood the dynamics at play. He had seen the toll poverty took on families, how easy it was for society to overlook the most vulnerable among them. "Your Honor, if I may," came the voice of the prosecutor, a tall, imposing figure with sharp features and an air of authority. "We need to focus on the facts. Aaliyah is not the only one in this situation." And "Objection," Judge Thompson interjected, his tone firm, echoing like a gunshot in the quiet room. "This is not merely a case about facts. This is about a child's life. We will not reduce her story to numbers." The prosecutor, taken aback, hesitated, then nodded, realizing he had crossed a line. Aaliyah's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of hope igniting within her. Perhaps this judge was different, someone who would see her, not just a statistic, but a girl with dreams and fears. As Aaliyah spoke, the courtroom transformed into a stage alive with emotions. Spectators leaned in, captivated by the weight of her story. She recounted the day her mother lost her job, the relentless stack of bills looming over them, and how, after too many arguments and too little food, they ended up on the streets. "Didn't anyone help you?" a woman in the audience asked, disbelief threading her voice. Aaliyah glanced at her, a flicker of sadness dancing in her eyes. "Sometimes people just don't see us," she replied, her voice tinged with an underlying bitterness. "They look right through us, like we're not even there." Judge Thompson felt a pang of empathy at her words. The image of Aaliyah, bright yet overshadowed by neglect, resonated with everyone in the room. "Did you have a place to stay last night?" he asked gently, wanting to probe further. Aaliyah hesitated, her gaze drifting to the floor as memories crashed over her. "I slept in a shelter," she admitted softly. "It was crowded, but at least I had a bed. Some nights I stay outside. It's quieter that way." A surge of frustration bubbled within Judge Thompson as he processed her reality. He turned to the spectators, his voice steady yet passionate. "This is unacceptable. No child should endure this kind of hardship. We must do better." His declaration hung in the air, a challenge that echoed throughout the room. Aaliyah's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, gratitude blooming inside her. In that moment, she felt seen, not just for her struggles, but for her resilience. As the hearing continued, Judge Thompson's sense of purpose deepened. He wasn't merely a judge today, he was an advocate for Aaliyah, a child whose voice had long been stifled by circumstance. Her story was not just one of despair, it was also a beacon of hope, a reminder of the potential waiting to be recognized. After Aaliyah's powerful testimony, Judge Thompson took a moment to gather his thoughts. He glanced at the young girl, who was biting her lower lip, a habit born from anxiety. "Aaliyah," he said, his voice measured and calm, "I want to help you, but I need to know what you need most right now." Tears brimmed in Aaliyah's eyes as she struggled to find the right words. I want a home," she replied, her voice cracking. "Somewhere safe. And maybe, I want to go to school." The judge nodded, absorbing her words. The image of Aaliyah, bright and eager yet living in the shadows, tugged at his heartstrings. "You deserve that," he affirmed, his tone resolute. "You deserve safety, education, and the chance to chase your dreams." He glanced around the courtroom, noting the varied reactions on the faces of those present. Some were sympathetic, nodding along with Aaliyah's pleas, while others wore masks of indifference. Among the spectators was a woman in her 50s with a stern expression, who seemed to dismiss Aaliyah's plight altogether. Judge Thompson recognized her as Ms. Jenkins, a representative from the Department of Child Services, known for her rigid adherence to policy over compassion. "Your Honor, this is a tough case," the prosecutor, Mr. Rodriguez, interjected, his tone sharp. "We can't just act on sympathy. There are protocols to follow, and we need to consider the potential consequences." Judge Thompson felt the familiar tension coil in his chest. He respected the legal process but couldn't shake the growing conviction that Aaliyah's needs went beyond bureaucratic protocols. "No, Mr. Rodriguez, we can. We can do something. Aaliyah is not just a case file. She is a child in need," he countered, his voice steady but edged with urgency. Rodriguez leaned forward, his expression skeptical. "Your Honor, this isn't just about one child. If we bypass the system, it sets a dangerous precedent. We can't let emotion dictate our decisions." Aaliyah, sensing the shift in the room, stood a bit taller, her determination flickering through her tears. Judge Thompson's heart raced as he wrestled with the conflicting forces at play. He understood the prosecutor's concerns, but he felt the weight of Aaliyah's reality pressing on him. Suddenly, Ms. Jenkins stood up, her voice cold and dismissive. "Judge Thompson, with all due respect, if you grant this placement, you open the floodgates. There are rules for a reason. We can't just place children wherever there's a sob story." The tension in the room thickened. Judge Thompson could feel the eyes of the courtroom on him, scrutinizing his next move. "Aaliyah's situation is not a sob story. It's a reality," he said, trying to maintain his composure. "She deserves a chance." "A chance that could backfire," Rodriguez interrupted. "We're dealing with a system that's already strained. If something goes wrong, it'll fall back on you, Judge. Are you willing to take that risk? The judge felt a wave of frustration wash over him, but he couldn't ignore the underlying fear in Rodriguez's voice. He was well aware of the flaws in the system, the bureaucratic red tape that often trapped children like Aaliyah in limbo. Here's what I'm going to do, he declared, raising his voice to cut through the tension. I am granting you a temporary placement in a local foster home. I will also assign a caseworker to assist you in getting back into school. But I want to see you here next month to discuss your progress and any further assistance you may need. Is that agreeable to you? Aaliyah's breath hitched in her throat. Really? She whispered, hope flickering in her eyes. Yes, the judge affirmed with a warm smile, though internally he braced for the backlash he knew would come. But it will require your commitment too. You have to promise to work hard and make the most of this opportunity. Aaliyah nodded vigorously, her eyes wide with gratitude. I promise. As the gavel struck, signifying the end of the hearing, the atmosphere in the courtroom shifted. Spectators erupted into murmurs, some exchanged glances filled with disbelief, while others showed a glimmer of hope. Judge Thompson felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders, but also a profound sense of purpose. He could sense the prosecutor's simmering discontent, a reminder that the challenges weren't over. As the courtroom cleared, Judge Thompson found himself approached by Ms. Jenkins. Her gaze was piercing, and her voice was laced with accusation. You really think this is going to end well? Placing her in a foster home. You're playing with fire, Judge. I hope you're prepared for the fallout. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. I understand the risks, Ms. Jenkins, but I refuse to let bureaucracy dictate a child's future. Aaliyah deserves a chance at a normal life. Jenkins scoffed, crossing her arms. Idealism doesn't put food on the table or protect against predators in the system. You should know better. Better than what? He shot back, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. Better than standing up for what's right. I won't let fear dictate my decisions. Before she could retort, Aaliyah approached, her small frame radiating resilience. You're stronger than you know, he whispered to her, ensuring only she could hear. Keep that strength close. As Aaliyah walked away, the judge caught Mr. Rodriguez's glare, a silent promise that the battle was just beginning. Judge Thompson knew he would have to defend his decision at the next hearing, but for now, he focused on the light of hope shining through Aaliyah's tears, ready to face whatever came next. After the courtroom emptied, Judge Thompson sat at his desk, his mind racing. He knew he had ignited a firestorm. He could already imagine the phone calls from higher-ups, the complaints from the prosecutor's office, and the potential backlash from the community. He rubbed his temples, trying to ease the tension that had built up throughout the day. Just then, his assistant, Clara, knocked softly on the door. Judge, are you okay? You've been quiet since the hearing. I'm fine, Clara, he replied, though his voice lacked conviction. Just thinking. About Aaliyah? She asked, stepping into the office. I know you care about her, but it's not just about her. There's a whole system at play, and it can be brutal. Judge Thompson nodded, appreciating her concern. I know, but if I don't take a stand for her, who will? The system has failed her time and again. I can't turn my back on a child in need. Clara studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. You're right, but just remember, the people in power don't always appreciate idealism. They want results, and if things go wrong, it's your name on the line. Then I'll make sure it doesn't go wrong, he replied, his resolve hardening. I won't let Aaliyah down. I can't. As she left, Judge Thompson stared out the window, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. He felt the weight of responsibility settle deeper into his bones. He couldn't shake the feeling that the real challenges were just beginning. In the coming weeks, he would have to navigate the complexities of the foster care system, face Rodriguez's aggressive opposition, and stand firm against the bureaucratic forces that sought to keep Aaliyah and countless others trapped in despair. But he was determined to fight for Aaliyah, to be her advocate in a world that had often turned its back on children like her. He took a deep breath and steeled himself for the battles ahead, aware that the stakes were higher than he had ever faced before. Aaliyah's future was in his hands, and he wouldn't let her down. As Aaliyah left the courtroom, a cacophony of voices buzzed around her, yet she felt like she was moving through water, slow, deliberate, and muffled. She held tightly to the folded paper that contained the judge's ruling, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and trepidation. What did this mean for her? Was it really possible that she could find a home? Walking down the courthouse steps, Aaliyah noticed the sun breaking through the clouds, illuminating the path ahead. It felt like a sign, a promise of better days. She glanced back at the imposing structure, which had felt so cold and foreboding just hours earlier. Now it seemed a beacon of hope. Meanwhile, Judge Thompson remained in the courtroom, his thoughts swirling with the implications of his decision. He turned to his bailiff, a sturdy woman with a sharp gaze and an unwavering sense of justice. "What resources do we have for Aaliyah?" he asked, concern etching lines on his face. "We can connect her with local organizations, but it's a fragmented system," the bailiff replied, her tone cautious. "It's not guaranteed that she'll find a stable foster home. We need to ensure she gets the support she needs," Judge Thompson insisted, a fire igniting in his chest. "She deserves a chance, a real chance." As they discussed possible solutions, Judge Thompson's mind raced through the intricacies of the welfare system, the bureaucratic hurdles that often obstructed true assistance. He was determined to break through the barriers, to find a way to not only support Aaliyah, but to advocate for systemic change. A week later, Aaliyah stood in the bustling office of a local non-profit organization, her heart pounding in her chest. The walls were adorned with vibrant murals, and the air was thick with the aroma of coffee and the sound of animated conversations. This place was alive with possibilities, a stark contrast to the sterile walls of the courthouse. She was there for her first meeting with her assigned caseworker, Ms. Carla Ramirez, a woman in her 30s with warm brown eyes and a comforting smile. Aaliyah felt an instant connection as Ms. Ramirez knelt to her level, offering her a firm yet gentle handshake. "Hi, Aaliyah. I'm so excited to meet you," Ms. Ramirez said, her voice full of warmth. "I've heard so much about you from Judge Thompson. He thinks you're going to do amazing things." Aaliyah felt a swell of pride at the mention of the judge's name. It was comforting to know someone believed in her. "Thank you," she replied, her voice steady. "I just want to go to school and have a home." Ms. Ramirez's expression shifted, a flicker of determination crossing her features. "That's exactly what we're going to work towards. You deserve that and so much more. But it will take some hard work from both of us." As they talked, Aaliyah discovered the many programs available to her: tutoring services, extracurricular activities, and resources for finding a stable living situation. The prospect of school filled her with anticipation, and she began to envision herself surrounded by friends, laughing and learning. With each passing moment, the barriers that had once confined her began to crumble. Aaliyah realized that she wasn't alone in this fight. She had advocates willing to help her navigate the challenges ahead. Months passed, and Aaliyah thrived under the guidance of Ms. Ramirez and the support of the foster home. She quickly adapted to her new life, her laughter filling the air like music. Aaliyah began attending school, her head held high and her heart brimming with hope. One afternoon, she returned home to find Judge Thompson waiting in the living room, a warm smile spreading across his face as he rose to greet her. "Aaliyah, look at you, all grown up and thriving." The judge's presence filled the room with a sense of safety, and Aaliyah felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you for everything, Your Honor," she replied earnestly. "I wouldn't be here without you." Judge Thompson knelt to her level, the seriousness of his expression replaced with genuine warmth. "No, Aaliyah, you did this. You fought for your life, and you continue to rise above it all. I'm proud of you." The conversation flowed easily, filled with laughter and dreams. They discussed Aaliyah's aspirations of becoming a veterinarian, her eyes shining brightly as she spoke of her passion for animals. "I want to help them, just like you helped me," she said, her voice resolute. Judge Thompson felt a swell of pride in his chest. "And you will, Aaliyah, I have no doubt about that." In that moment, he understood the profound impact of his role, not just as a judge, but as a mentor and a guardian of hope for children like Aaliyah. As the school year unfolded, Aaliyah faced a blend of excitement and trepidation. Though she was determined to flourish, The shadows of her past loomed large. The transition to her new foster home was far from seamless. While her foster parents, the Martinez family, were kind and supportive, adjusting to life with them proved difficult. They had their own children, and Aaliyah often felt like an outsider, wrestling with insecurities about her place in their lives. The warmth of their home contrasted sharply with the cold loneliness of her past, but it took time for her to fully embrace it. In school, Aaliyah worked hard to keep up with her studies, but the emotional toll of her experiences sometimes weighed heavily on her. During her first math test, anxiety gripped her as she stared at the paper, her mind racing with self-doubt. She recalled nights spent in shelters, struggling to focus on her homework. Despite her determination, she found herself blanking on the equations. After the test, Aaliyah sought help from Ms. Ramirez, her guidance counselor, who had been a steadfast support since her time in court. "I just don't get it," Aaliyah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I was doing better, but I keep messing up." Ms. Ramirez smiled gently, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's okay to struggle, Aaliyah. You've been through a lot. Remember, progress is not always linear. Let's set up some time for extra tutoring. I believe you can master this." With Ms. Ramirez's encouragement, Aaliyah began attending tutoring sessions after school. It was challenging, especially when her classmates would tease her for needing help, but she pushed through. Each session brought a little more clarity, and slowly, her confidence began to rebuild. Outside of academics, Aaliyah sought to connect with her peers. Joining the school's art club allowed her to express herself creatively, a soothing balm for her heart. She poured her emotions onto the canvas, creating pieces that spoke of her struggles and triumphs. Though she was initially met with skepticism, her artwork soon captivated her classmates, allowing her to forge friendships with those who appreciated her perspective. One day during a school assembly, Aaliyah was invited to share her story. Standing before a sea of her peers, she felt a wave of nerves wash over her. She remembered the nights spent shivering under a thin blanket and the fear of not knowing where she would sleep next. "My name is Aaliyah Williams," she began, her voice quaking but resolute. "I want to talk about homelessness and the importance of kindness and compassion." As she shared her journey, her struggles with fear, insecurity, and the tireless support of people like Judge Thompson and Ms. Ramirez, she saw empathy flicker in her classmates' eyes. Some nodded, while others leaned forward, captivated by her raw honesty. Aaliyah talked about the challenges of adjusting to life in foster care, the moments of feeling lost, and the hard-won victories that led her to this moment. When she finished, the audience erupted into applause. It was a powerful acknowledgement of her courage and resilience. In that moment, Aaliyah felt the weight of her experiences transform into something beautiful, a platform for change. It was a victory not just for her, but for every child who had ever felt invisible. After the assembly, she spotted Judge Thompson waiting for her outside. His eyes sparkled with pride as he embraced her. "You were incredible," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You're already making a difference." Aaliyah beamed, her heart swelling with joy. "Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to help others, too." "Just remember," he said, his tone growing serious, "the journey isn't always easy. You may face more obstacles ahead, but never doubt your power to inspire change. Keep pushing forward, Aaliyah." Years later, Aaliyah stood before a new group of children at a community center, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. Now a successful veterinarian, she carried the weight of her experiences with her, a reminder of the journey that had shaped her. The room was filled with chatter and laughter, but she could see the hesitation in some of the children's faces, expressions she recognized all too well. "No matter where you start, your dreams are valid, and you can achieve them," she told them, her voice steady but passionate. She recalled her struggles in school, the nights spent cramming for exams, and the discouragement that had threatened to overwhelm her at times. Aaliyah shared stories from her life, the challenges of navigating the foster care system, the pain of feeling out of place in her new home, and the strength she found in her support system. She spoke candidly about the obstacles she faced while pursuing her dream of becoming a veterinarian, late-night study sessions, balancing work at the animal shelter, and overcoming the self-doubt that often creeped in. Among the audience sat Judge Thompson, who watched with pride as Aaliyah inspired the next generation. He marveled at how far she had come. The girl who had once stood before him in a courtroom, vulnerable and afraid, now exuded strength and resilience. As the session ended, Aaliyah approached him, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me, Judge Thompson," she said, her voice full of emotion. "I wouldn't be here without you." He smiled warmly, his heart swelling with pride. "No, Aaliyah, you did this. You found your strength and made a difference." Aaliyah nodded, understanding the truth in his words. The journey was not just about her. It was about creating ripples of change, one story at a time. Yet she also knew that the fight wasn't over. While she had achieved her dream, countless children still faced the challenges she had overcome. As the laughter of children filled the room, Aaliyah was reminded of her own beginnings. The road ahead would be paved with challenges, but she was committed to helping others navigate their own. "I want to start a mentorship program," she announced, her voice ringing with conviction. "I want to connect kids in foster care with resources, guidance, and support. We need to create a community where everyone can find their place." Judge Thompson nodded, clearly impressed. "That's a fantastic idea. Your story can empower so many others." As she left the community center, Aaliyah felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would continue to fight for those who felt invisible, ensuring that every child, regardless of their circumstances, had the chance to shine. Her journey was a testament to resilience, and she was determined to pave the way for others, one step at a time.